So the term is now over for this period, for this year. You guys dropped a funding plan for 2024 11 days ago. I'm sure there's a lot of community feedback, maybe also like messages you guys got privately. I'm sure there's a lot of also angry people that make up things about you. I'm sure there's also a lot of constructive feedback that you might also take into account before going on chain. And I think in the proposal it actually mentions that you were aiming to go on chain like relatively soon, right? In the next couple of days. So what are your plans? Maybe just on a very high level. I also don't want you to like present the entire proposal. I think also people can just go through the post and read it themselves. But yeah, what are your high level plans? What are some of the things that are fundamentally changing for the next term? What's the request? And what are some of the changes you might implement based on community feedback?
Yeah, so I would start with the raw proposal itself and then talk about the amendments that we made following community feedback. So, we based this new funding proposal on our learnings, and the challenge that we had. So one thing that is very important is that our headcount is gonna increase because we want to cover more grounds. We want to service in a more effective, a more organized way, and like fulfill those grants. And so that's why we're migrating to a full-time model. I think this is severely underrated because we've been able to achieve a lot with 75% of part-time people. So just imagine if we flip that to 75% full-time, like what's the reach we can have. So that's one. Second, we want to refine the grant program and shift it toward more RFPs. So in year one, we were not equipped to do those RFPs, right? I mean, except the first one, on which we spent significant amount of time, like my personal time on the economics RFP, between running interviews, reading the content, the research, etc., coordinating with the team, was a huge amount of work. And now what we want to do for next year is hire more technical resources so that we can do more RFPs. So what we're suggesting for next year is, in addition to a part-time developer, we're adding a full-time developer. We're also adding a technical product manager. And the goal here is that we want to do roughly, I mean, we can't commit exactly on the amount, but roughly 50% on open grants, which are grassroots bottom-up approach, and then RFPs and what I call high value add or high priority grants, which are more top-down approach, where we identify a few areas of potentially high impact through proper and deep research, and then once we have let's say 10, 12 RFP IDs, we narrow that to a few depending on the budget that we have, and we talk with the community. We involve the community. That's one very important feedback that we got, is that community was not always involved in our decision making, in how we make decisions. So for RFPs, for open grants, the process doesn't need to change, but we understand that the community wants to have a say in very important matters, and those RFP are going to be about important matters. So we'll do RFPs around AEZ, we'll do RFPs around infrastructure, relayer infrastructure, around how to position Atom as money, and a post like Carter's post on the forum, like I see a lot of RFP IDs there, very good ideas on relayer. For example, Atom as gas token. If we are serious about that, and I'm very serious about that, I really want to push for that. AADAO wants to push for that. There are multiple ways to do it. You can do it by integrating with the wallets, giving them incentives, but you can also do it with the relayer infrastructure, because right now relayer are operating at loss. That's a big problem. And so if we can find a way to incentivize the relayer and in exchange solve those huge user experience problem and position Atom as the interchain gas, that's a huge benefit for Atom. So that's where we want to go, because the return on investments on those RFP is clearly way above, like multiples above open grants. Now, That doesn't mean that we should stop open grants. We should not stop open grants, because they have a very different purpose. Open grants are about serving the general interest of the dev community, making sure that they can stay creative, that if they have a spontaneous strike of genius and they want to apply, we don't want to force them to go to the RFP process. Yes, you can apply for education, for infrastructure, for public goods, etc. But we want to do much more RFP. So that's the second point. The third point is we want to be more. We want to find a path toward being self-sustainable. That's at least our vision for AADAO, is that if we are funded by the community pool, it's important that we find a path where progressively we can become self-sustainable, right? So I'll just give you an example. That Neutron airdrop that we helped for, we didn't get anything for that, right? And that's $30 million. So if we can start bringing deals in the shape of grants, right? Or, for example, grant against equity, right? Or grants against revenue share. So identify the most interesting grants where there is a potential to generate revenue for the hub, facilitate, steward, and maintain the proposal, the grant, and then take a take fee on top of that. That helps us being more sustainable. And that means that instead of going to the community pool every year asking for funding, well, maybe with those new revenues, we can wait 2 years before going back to the community pool while staying fully aligned, because we would live from the revenues that we make on behalf of the Cosmos Hub. One thing that we really want to do next year is involve the community much more. And so I mentioned earlier on the call that we want to open up the oversight committee to a governance elected member. The migration to DAO I think is going to be critical for us, because that's going to give more leverage to public governance to control the DAO. So there are multiple ways to do it. We're exploring veto by public governance on grants. There is a roadmap. We're in touch with the DAO team. For now, we're starting with the basics, but we'll soon look at that. Now, the last piece, which was the most controversial, was we wanted to add a growth DAO, or what we call a growth and BG sub DAO, as part of AADAO. And look, everyone knows that there is a huge BG problem in Cosmos, and we also realized that people were naturally coming at us for BG purpose, and that was a logical thing to do as complementary to grants, because I think grants and BG go very well, like hand in hand. But we've seen some concerns from the community about the way we structured the approach on BG. So what we collectively decided as a DAO, we voted on that yesterday, and we had a consensus that we would pause the sub-DAO growth, the growth sub-DAO, we'll put it on pause. We're not saying that we won't do it. We still want to do it. We just need to get more involved with the community, get more of their feedback. So what we propose to do is we will do the funding proposal. We will go on chain somewhere, hopefully next week, exclusively on the grant. And then in parallel, we're gonna create, post on the forum a discussion around BG and how AADAO can help with that, and just gather feedback so that we can have a proper scope. We also want to better scope the BG with our new strategy enforcer committee that is made with a constellation of stars, of super bright people like Riley from Stride, who's going to be part of the strategy committee. And so we want to say, okay, what is the dominant narrative? What should we focus on? Because BG is only as good as how granular you become, right? So if we define that Atom as money, Atom as interchain money is the right narrative to pursue, then all the BG needs to focus on that specific area, instead of just spray and pray and hope that something is going to work out. We want to do it in a more granular scoped way. And yeah, those are basically the idea. So we still want to do BD. We just take more time, and in the meantime solidify our grant program. There's no rush to do BD. We just want to make sure that we do it well in a grassroots way.
Yeah,
I think what we learned in our operations in AADAO is that we didn't become just a grant focused DAO, but we kind of became stewards of whatever is needed to be done for the hub, right? Whether it's becoming custodians of deploying, liquidity, whether it's, facilitating relationships within, AEZ teams or even outside of Cosmos, or just tackling, the deficiencies we face in Cosmos Hub today, such as the fragmentation and coordination that it lacks. And a lot of those lessons that we learned is what we want to apply in the next term.